You feel the cool, rough stone beneath your bare feet, a faint tremor rising from the earth as the city awakens around you. The air, still heavy with the night's dampness, carries the distant murmur of voices, the clatter of a cart on cobblestones, and the faint, sweet scent of wood smoke mingling with something sharper, perhaps the tang of fermenting grapes or the acrid smell of a nearby forge. You are here, in the heart of the Roman Empire, a vast, sprawling entity of power and ambition, where every shadow holds a story and every sun-drenched street conceals 1,000 hidden lives. It's a world you might not have survived, a life that tested the very limits of human endurance, where your fate was not your own, but a thread woven into the grand, indifferent tapestry of another's will. As we begin, feel free to share where you're listening from and what time it is in your part of the world. It's always amazing to see where our stories reach. And if you enjoy these journeys into the past, consider subscribing to join our community of sleepy stories. Now, let's dim the lights and enjoy our journey tonight. The journey begins not with a choice, but with an abrupt, jarring shift, a sudden severing from all that was familiar, leaving you adrift in a sea of uncertainty. Perhaps you were captured in a distant land, the clash of steel and the shouts of legionaries echoing in your ears as your village burned, the acrid smoke stinging your eyes and throat, leaving a bitter taste of loss that would linger for years. You remember the rough hands that bound your wrists, the relentless march under an alien sun, the dust coating your tongue, each step a dull ache in your weary limbs, pushing you further and further from the life you knew, from the faces that once brought comfort. Or perhaps you were born into this existence, the first breath you drew already marked by the invisible chains of servitude, your mother's weary sigh a lullaby of resignation, the small, cramped space you called home the only world you had ever known, its boundaries defined by the will of others. You learn early the subtle language of obedience, the slight tilt of the head, the lowered gaze, the quiet footsteps that announce your presence without demanding attention. For even a whisper out of place can draw the master's ire, a ripple in the calm surface of their day that you dare not disturb. You are now part of a long, shuffling line, a silent procession of the dispossessed, moving towards a destiny unknown, each face etched with a similar blend of fear and exhaustion, a shared understanding that words are useless, that only silence and endurance remain. The air grows thick with the scent of unwashed bodies, of fear, of the unfamiliar spices carried on the wind from distant markets, a constant reminder of how far you have traveled, how utterly lost you are in this new, overwhelming world. The sun beats down relentlessly, baking the earth, and the thirst becomes a gnawing presence, a dry rasp in your throat that no amount of swallowed dust can quench. You watch the landscape shift, from the wild, untamed forests of your homeland to the ordered fields and paved roads of this new empire, each mile a further separation, a deeper plunge into the vast, indifferent machinery of Rome. The guards, with their stern faces and heavy cloaks, move with an unhurried efficiency, their spears glinting in the sunlight, a constant, silent threat that keeps the line moving, keeps the despair from boiling over into open defiance. You learn to conserve your energy, to find small moments of rest in the brief halts, leaning against a fellow captive, feeling the warmth of another body, a fleeting connection in the vast loneliness. The journey culminates in the bustling, cacophonous heart of a Roman city, a sensory assault after the quiet desolation of the road. The sheer scale of the buildings, the towering aqueducts, the intricate carvings on the temples, all speak of a power you cannot comprehend, a civilization built on foundations you are only now beginning to understand. The streets teem with life, a vibrant tapestry of citizens in their togas, merchants hawking their wares, soldiers marching with rhythmic precision, and countless others like yourself, moving with a purpose not their own. The noise is overwhelming. The shouts of vendors, the rumble of carts, the incessant chatter of 1,000 conversations, the distant roar from the amphitheater, a sound that sends a shiver down your spine, a primal echo of violence and spectacle. You are led through narrow, winding alleys, past overflowing market stalls laden with exotic fruits and pungent cheeses, past workshops where the clang of hammers on metal rings out, past taverns where the smell of cheap wine and stale bread hangs heavy in the air. Every glance, every whisper, every gesture seems to hold a hidden meaning, a code you have yet to decipher, and you feel a profound sense of disorientation, a small, insignificant speck in this vast, indifferent machine. Finally, you arrive at the slave market, a place unlike any you have ever seen. A stark, open space where human beings are displayed like goods, their worth assessed by the keen, calculating eyes of potential buyers. The air here is thick with a different kind of tension, a mixture of anticipation and dread. You see others, some with defiant glares, some with vacant stares, some openly weeping, their tears tracing clean paths through the grime on their faces. The auctioneer's voice, a booming, rhythmic chant, cuts through the din, extolling the virtues of each individual, their strength, their skills, their youth, their beauty, reducing them to a list of attributes, a commodity to be bought and sold. You are stripped, examined, your teeth checked, your muscles prodded, your body turned this way and that, a humiliating inspection that strips away any remaining dignity, leaving you feeling utterly exposed and vulnerable. The cold, assessing gaze of the buyers washes over you, a silent judgment that determines your future, a future that could lead to a life of relative comfort or unimaginable hardship. You stand there, a silent testament to the brutal realities of this empire, your breath shallow, your heart a frantic drum against your ribs, waiting for the hammer to fall, for the word that will seal your fate. The moment the hammer falls, a strange quiet descends, not a true silence, but a sudden cessation of the frantic internal clamor, replaced by a dull, heavy thud of finality. You are no longer a nameless face in a crowd, but a possession, a piece of property, now belonging to a new master whose face you have barely registered, whose voice is just another indistinct murmur in the overwhelming symphony of the market. A hand, firm and unyielding, takes your arm, pulling you away from the platform, away from the lingering scent of fear and desperation, towards an unknown destination. The world outside the market seems to blur, the vibrant colors of the city muted by the haze of your own exhaustion and the profound sense of displacement that settles deep within your bones. You walk through streets that are both familiar and utterly alien, the grand architecture of the Roman villas rising around you, their imposing facades speaking of wealth and power, a stark contrast to the rough, simple life you once knew. The sounds of the city, once a cacophony, now seem to recede, replaced by the rhythmic scuff of your own sandals on the paving stones, a quiet, monotonous beat that accompanies your every step. You are led through a grand entrance, past heavy wooden doors adorned with intricate bronze fittings, into a world of cool marble and hushed whispers. The air inside is different, scented with exotic perfumes and the faint, sweet aroma of burning incense, a stark contrast to the dust and sweat of the streets. The light, filtered through high windows, casts long, elegant shadows across polished floors, illuminating frescoes on the walls that depict scenes of gods and heroes, of lush gardens and distant battles. You are acutely aware of the silence that pervades these spaces, a silence broken only by the soft rustle of tunics, the distant clatter of pottery from a hidden courtyard, or the gentle murmur of voices from rooms unseen. This is the domus, the Roman household, a self-contained universe where every individual has a place, a role, and where your own existence is now defined by the needs and desires of its inhabitants. You are led through a labyrinth of corridors, past doors that open onto private chambers, past courtyards where fountains gently splash, their cool water a soothing sound in the quiet grandeur. The sheer scale of the house is overwhelming, a testament to the master's status, and you feel a profound sense of insignificance, a tiny cog in a vast, intricate machine. You are introduced to the familia urbana, the urban household staff, a diverse group of individuals, each with their own duties and their own place in the complex hierarchy of the household. There are the ostiarii, the doorkeepers, their stern faces a constant presence at the entrance. The cubicularii, who attend to the master's personal needs. The atrii, who manage the household accounts. The lectors who read aloud. The pedisequi, who accompany the master on his outings. And countless others, each performing a specific function, contributing to the smooth operation of this miniature society. You observe their interactions, the subtle nods, the knowing glances, the quiet conversations, trying to decipher the unspoken rules, the intricate web of relationships that govern their lives. Some faces are kind, offering a fleeting, sympathetic glance, while others are cold and indifferent, their eyes holding a warning to know your place. You learn quickly that within this household, there are further distinctions, a pecking order that must be respected. For even among slaves, there are those with more influence, more favor, more proximity to the master's ear. The air is thick with unspoken expectations, with the weight of tradition, and you feel the subtle pressure to conform, to blend in, to become an invisible part of the household's rhythm. Your first task is simple, mundane, yet it marks your official entry into this new life. Perhaps you are given a broom and instructed to sweep a courtyard, the rough bristles scratching against the mosaic tiles, raising clouds of fine dust that catch the sunlight. Or perhaps you are handed a cloth and told to polish a bronze statue, the cool metal smooth beneath your fingertips, reflecting your own distorted image back at you. The work is repetitive, demanding a quiet focus, allowing your mind to wander, to process the enormity of your situation. You observe the other slaves as they go about their duties, their movements efficient and practiced, their faces often impassive, revealing little of their inner thoughts. You notice the way they carry themselves, the subtle deference in their posture when a free person passes, the way their eyes dart around, constantly assessing, constantly aware of their surroundings. You learn the layout of the house, the hidden passages, the back stairs, the service entrances, the places where you are expected to be, and the places where you are forbidden to tread. The days stretch out, long and uniform, each one a repetition of the last, a slow, steady rhythm of labor and quiet observation. As you begin to internalize the routines, to understand the unspoken demands of your new existence. The food you are given is simple, often coarse, a stark contrast to the rich banquets you sometimes glimpse being prepared for the master and his guests. You eat in a communal space, perhaps a small, dimly lit room off the kitchen, sharing a meal of bread, olives, and a thin gruel, sometimes with a piece of dried fish or a few vegetables. The conversation among the slaves is hushed, often practical, discussing the day's tasks, the master's moods, the latest gossip from the city. You listen more than you speak, absorbing the nuances of their language, the subtle inflections that convey meaning beyond the words themselves. The taste of the food is bland, yet it provides the necessary sustenance, a reminder that your body, though weary, must continue to function, must continue to serve. You learn to appreciate the small comforts, the warmth of the fire in the kitchen on a cold morning, the brief respite of a shared meal, the quiet camaraderie that forms among those who share a similar fate. The nights are spent in cramped quarters, perhaps a small room shared with several others, the air thick with the scent of bodies and stale breath. You lie on a thin mattress, listening to the soft snores of your companions, the distant sounds of the city fading into the background, and you drift into a restless sleep, your dreams often haunted by fragmented memories of a life that is no longer yours. As the days bleed into weeks, and weeks into months, The initial shock begins to recede, replaced by a dull ache of acceptance, a quiet resignation to the rhythm of your new life. You learn the intricate dance of the Roman household, the unspoken rules that govern every interaction, the subtle cues that indicate a master's pleasure or displeasure. Your hands, once perhaps accustomed to the plow or the loom, now grow calloused from polishing bronze, scrubbing floors, or carrying heavy amphorae of water. The scent of olive oil, once a luxury, now clings to your clothes and skin, a constant reminder of your duties. You move through the grand rooms of the domus with a practiced ease, your footsteps silent on the mosaic floors, your presence almost invisible, a shadow flitting through the sunlit spaces. You learn to anticipate needs before they are voiced, to read the subtle shifts in a master's expression, to understand the unspoken commands in a raised eyebrow or a flick of the wrist. This constant vigilance, this perpetual awareness of others' desires, becomes a second nature, a survival mechanism in a world where your own desires hold no weight. The master, the dominus, is the sun around which your world revolves. His moods dictate the atmosphere of the household. His whims shape your day. You learn to discern the subtle signs of his temper, the tightening of his jaw, the slight narrowing of his eyes, and you instinctively adjust your movements, your voice, your very presence to avoid drawing his ire. Sometimes, his voice is a low rumble, a distant thunder that promises a storm. At other times, it is sharp and cutting, a sudden crack that shatters the fragile peace of the household. You witness moments of unexpected kindness, a rare word of praise, a small gift, a fleeting smile that momentarily lifts the heavy burden from your shoulders, offering a glimpse of a different possibility. But these moments are fleeting, fragile, easily overshadowed by the constant awareness of your subordinate status, the ever-present threat of punishment for even the slightest transgression. You learn that the master's power is absolute, his authority unquestioned, and that your life, your very being, is entirely at his discretion. The mistress, the domina, holds a different kind of power, often more immediate and personal within the confines of the household. Her gaze is sharp, her expectations precise, and her demands can be as varied as the intricate patterns on her silken tunics. You might spend hours attending to her elaborate toilette, carefully arranging her hair, applying cosmetics, selecting her jewelry, your fingers nimble and precise, ensuring every detail is perfect. The scent of her perfumes, rich and exotic, fills the air around you, a stark contrast to the simpler aromas of your own existence. You learn the subtle art of flattery, the quiet compliment, the deferential nod. For her favor can mean the difference between a comfortable day and one filled with arduous tasks. You observe her interactions with her children, her friends, her other slaves, noting the dynamics, the alliances, the unspoken rivalries that simmer beneath the surface of polite society. Her displeasure can manifest in a sharp word, a dismissive gesture, or a more severe punishment, and you learn to navigate her moods with extreme caution, always striving to remain in her good graces, to be an efficient and unobtrusive presence in her daily life. Life within the domus is not uniform. It varies greatly depending on the master's wealth, his temperament, and the specific role you are assigned. If you are a cubicularius, attending directly to the master's personal needs, you might experience a closer, albeit still subservient, relationship, privy to his private moments, his conversations, his vulnerabilities. This proximity can bring both privilege and danger, for you are a witness to his private world, and discretion becomes your most valuable asset. If you are a librarius, a scribe, your days are spent in the quiet solitude of the library, copying texts, organizing scrolls, your fingers stained with ink, your mind immersed in the wisdom of ancient philosophers and poets. This intellectual labor offers a different kind of freedom, a mental escape from the physical confines of your servitude, allowing your thoughts to soar beyond the walls of the domus. But if you are a cook, your days are spent in the hot, smoky confines of the kitchen, the air thick with the aroma of roasting meats and simmering sauces, your hands constantly busy, preparing elaborate meals for the master's table, a demanding and often thankless task. The hierarchy among the slaves themselves is a complex, unspoken system, a miniature society with its own rules and customs. There are the ordinary slaves who perform the bulk of the household labor, and then there are the vicarii, slaves who are themselves owned by other slaves, a peculiar layering of servitude that speaks to the intricate nature of Roman law and custom. You observe the subtle power dynamics, the way a trusted dispensator, who manages the household finances, might hold sway over others, his words carrying more weight, his commands obeyed with greater alacrity. There are alliances formed, quiet friendships forged in shared hardship, moments of whispered comfort exchanged in the dim light of the slave quarters. But there are also rivalries, jealousies, the constant struggle for favor, for a slightly easier task, for a moment of recognition from the master. You learn to navigate these internal politics with care, to choose your allies wisely, to avoid unnecessary conflict, for a misstep can lead to ostracization or worse, to being reported to the master for a perceived transgression. The air is often thick with unspoken tensions, with the quiet hum of ambition and resentment, a constant reminder that even within the bonds of slavery, human nature finds a way to assert itself. Beyond the polished floors and hushed corridors of the urban domus lies a different, harsher reality of Roman slavery. The vast agricultural estates, the latifundia, where the rhythm of life is dictated by the sun, the seasons, and the relentless demands of the land. If your fate leads you here, you find yourself amidst the familia rustica, the rural slave population, a world far removed from the refined comforts of the city. The air here is thick with the scent of turned earth, of ripening grain, of animal dung, a primal aroma that speaks of labor and sustenance. Your days begin before dawn, the chill of the morning air biting at your exposed skin as you are roused from a restless sleep in cramped, often damp, communal barracks. The sky is still a deep, bruised purple, slowly lightening to a pale gray as you join the silent procession of figures moving towards the fields, their tools clanking softly in the pre-dawn quiet. The ground beneath your feet is uneven, often muddy or stony, a constant challenge to your balance, a persistent ache in your ankles and calves. The work is backbreaking, relentless, a continuous cycle of planting, weeding, harvesting, and processing. You might spend hours bent double in the scorching sun, your fingers raw from pulling weeds, your back a constant throb of protest. The sweat stings your eyes, running in rivulets down your face, mingling with the dust that coats your skin and clothes. The sun beats down with an unforgiving intensity, baking the earth, and the thirst becomes a constant companion, a dry rasp in your throat that no amount of water can truly quench. You hear the rhythmic swing of hoes, the rustle of grain in the wind, the distant lowing of cattle, the shouts of the vilicus, the overseer, his voice sharp and unyielding, urging you on, demanding more effort, more speed. There is little respite, little time for conversation, only the steady, monotonous rhythm of labor, your body moving almost instinctively, driven by the need to survive, to avoid the lash. The days stretch out, long and arduous, each one a test of endurance, a quiet battle against fatigue and despair. The vilicus, often a slave himself, but one who has earned the master's trust through his ruthlessness and efficiency, is your immediate authority. His gaze is sharp, his presence a constant reminder of the consequences of idleness or disobedience. He carries a whip, not always used, but its presence is a silent threat, a chilling promise of pain that hangs heavy in the air. You learn to anticipate his movements, to gauge his mood, to work with a diligence that leaves no room for complaint. His loyalty is to the master, and his own survival and status depend on the productivity of the estate, on the amount of grain harvested, the number of olives pressed, the quality of the wine produced. You see the fear in the eyes of your fellow slaves when he approaches, the sudden burst of renewed energy, the lowered gazes, the quiet murmurs of compliance. His commands are direct, his expectations clear, and there is no room for argument or hesitation. The relationship is one of power and submission, a constant negotiation of boundaries, a delicate balance between obedience and the preservation of your own fragile spirit. The living conditions on the latifundia are stark, utilitarian, designed for efficiency rather than comfort. You sleep in communal barracks, often with dozens of others, the air thick with the scent of unwashed bodies, of damp earth, of stale food. Your bed is a simple straw pallet, perhaps a rough blanket, offering little protection from the cold nights or the biting insects. The food is basic, often just coarse bread, olives, and a watery gruel, enough to sustain your body for the demanding labor, but little more. There is no privacy, no personal space, only the constant presence of others, their snores, their coughs, their restless movements filling the night. You learn to find small moments of solitude, perhaps by rising before the others, or by lingering in the fields after the sun has set, watching the stars emerge in the vast, indifferent sky, a fleeting sense of peace in the overwhelming darkness. The camaraderie among the field slaves is different from that of the urban household. It is a bond forged in shared hardship, a silent understanding that transcends words, a quiet solidarity in the face of relentless toil. The dangers of agricultural slavery are ever present. The sharp edge of a scythe, the unpredictable kick of a mule, the sudden collapse from heat stroke, the festering wound that turns septic in the absence of proper care. You witness injuries, illnesses, the slow decline of those whose bodies can no longer withstand the demands placed upon them. There is little medical attention, only the rough remedies of folk wisdom, the quiet prayers whispered to forgotten gods. The fear of injury is a constant companion, for a broken limb or a debilitating illness can render you useless, a burden to the master, leading to a harsher fate, perhaps even abandonment. You learn to move with caution, to anticipate risks, to protect your body, for it is your only tool, your only means of survival. The landscape itself can be unforgiving. The sudden storms that turn fields into muddy quagmires, the droughts that parch the earth and threaten the harvest, the wild animals that lurk in the surrounding forests. You are at the mercy of both nature and man, a fragile existence balanced on the edge of survival, your life a constant testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of overwhelming adversity. Beyond the fields and the grand urban villas, the Roman Empire's insatiable appetite for resources and spectacle created yet another realm of servitude, one often shrouded in the deepest shadows and marked by the most brutal conditions, the mines and quarries. If your fate led you to these depths, you would descend into a world of perpetual twilight, where the air is thick with dust and the metallic tang of rock, and the only sounds are the rhythmic clang of picks against stone, the creak of timber supports, and the strained grunts of men. The sun, a distant memory, is replaced by the flickering, smoky light of oil lamps, casting dancing shadows that distort the already claustrophobic tunnels. The chill of the earth seeps into your bones, a constant, pervasive cold that no amount of exertion can truly dispel. You are part of a silent, subterranean army, extracting the very sinews of the empire gold, silver, iron, marble, from the unyielding grasp of the earth. The work in the mines is a relentless, soul-crushing ordeal. You wield a heavy pickaxe, your muscles screaming with each swing, chipping away at the stubborn rock, the vibrations traveling up your arms, numbing your hands. The dust, fine and insidious, fills your lungs with every breath, coating your throat, leaving a gritty taste that never quite goes away. Your body aches in places you never knew existed, a constant symphony of pain that becomes a dull background hum to your existence. The air is stale, heavy, often suffocating, and the darkness presses in from all sides, a tangible presence that threatens to swallow you whole. You work in shifts, but the concept of day and night blurs into an endless cycle of labor, punctuated only by brief, exhausted periods of rest. The overseers, often armed and merciless, patrol the tunnels, their voices echoing harshly, their whips cracking like thunder in the confined spaces, urging you to greater effort, to extract more, always more. The dangers are manifold and ever-present. The sudden collapse of a tunnel, the rush of water from an underground spring, the noxious fumes that can steal your breath, the falling rocks that can crush a limb or end a life in an instant. You witness accidents, the screams of the injured, the grim efficiency with which bodies are removed, replaced by another nameless face. The fear is a cold knot in your stomach, a constant companion that sharpens your senses, making you acutely aware of every creak, every tremor, every subtle shift in the earth around you. You learn to trust your instincts, to listen to the subtle warnings the rock itself provides, for your life depends on it. The wounds you sustain, the cuts, the bruises, the broken bones, are often left untended, festering in the damp, unsanitary conditions, leading to infection and a slow, agonizing decline. The lifespan of a mine slave is notoriously short, a grim testament to the brutal demands placed upon their bodies, a silent sacrifice to the Empire's boundless ambition. Life in the quarries, though exposed to the open sky, is no less arduous. Here, under the blazing sun, you wield heavy hammers and chisels, splitting massive blocks of marble or granite from the living rock. The glare off the white stone is blinding, the heat radiating from its surface intense, and the air is filled with the sharp, metallic scent of stone dust. The sound of hammers striking rock is a deafening, rhythmic roar that reverberates through the valley, a constant reminder of the immense scale of the labor. You work alongside dozens, sometimes hundreds of others, their bodies glistening with sweat, their muscles straining with each blow. The sheer weight of the stone, the effort required to move even a small block, is immense, demanding every ounce of your strength and endurance. You learn the precise angles, the subtle weaknesses in the rock, the techniques passed down through generations of forced labor, for efficiency means survival. The living conditions for mine and quarry slaves are the most basic, often little more than crude shelters or caves near the worksite. Food is minimal, barely enough to sustain the immense physical exertion, often just coarse bread and water, sometimes a few dried beans. There is no comfort, no respite, only the relentless cycle of labor and exhaustion. The communal sleeping areas are often damp, cold, and infested with vermin, offering little true rest. The bonds formed among these slaves are often the strongest, a silent brotherhood forged in shared suffering, a deep understanding that only those who have endured such conditions can truly comprehend. You see the quiet acts of kindness, the shared sip of water, the helping hand with a heavy load, the whispered word of encouragement. Small gestures that speak volumes in a world where compassion is a rare and precious commodity. Yet, even in these darkest corners of the Empire, the human spirit finds ways to endure. You might find solace in the rhythmic nature of the work, allowing your mind to drift, to escape the physical pain, to conjure images of a life once lived, or a freedom longed for. You might hum a forgotten tune, a melody from your homeland, a quiet act of defiance against the silence of your servitude. You might find a small, smooth stone, a fragment of quartz glinting in the lamplight, and hold it in your hand, a tiny piece of beauty in a world of harshness. These small, internal acts of resistance, these quiet assertions of your own humanity, become your lifeline, your way of preserving a flicker of hope in the overwhelming darkness. The constant struggle, the daily grind, the ever-present threat of danger, all serve to sharpen your senses, to deepen your understanding of resilience, to etch the harsh realities of existence into the very fabric of your being. The Roman Empire, a vast and intricate tapestry of power, commerce, and culture, relied not only on brute force in its mines and fields, but also on the subtle, often invisible labor of its public slaves, the servi publici. If your path led you to this unique form of servitude, you would find yourself woven into the very fabric of the state, your duties contributing directly to the functioning of the city itself. The air you breathe might be filled with the scent of parchment and ink in a public archive, or the damp earthiness of a sewer system, or the metallic tang of a public bathhouse. Your days are spent not under the direct gaze of a private master, but under the watchful eye of a magistrate, a city official, or a college of priests, your life dictated by the needs of the Roman people, or at least the Roman state. You might find yourself working in the bustling public baths, the thermae, a hub of Roman social life. Here, the air is thick with steam, the scent of olive oil and sweat, and the constant murmur of voices. Your tasks could range from stoking the furnaces that heat the water, your body glistening with sweat in the oppressive warmth, to scrubbing down the floors, the rough bristles of the broom scraping against the wet tiles. You might be responsible for collecting the strigils, the curved metal scrapers used by bathers, or for maintaining the supply of fresh water, your arms aching from carrying heavy buckets. You observe the citizens as they move through the various rooms, the apodyterium for changing, the tepidarium for warm baths, the caldarium for hot baths, and the frigidarium for cold plunges, their conversations a constant backdrop to your labor. You hear snippets of gossip, political discussions, philosophical debates, a constant stream of information that flows around you, yet rarely includes you. Alternatively, you might be assigned to the public works, the monumental projects that defined Roman engineering prowess. You could be part of a team maintaining the vast network of aqueducts, ensuring the flow of fresh water to the city, your hands calloused from repairing stone channels, your body exposed to the elements as you work high above the ground. Or perhaps you are involved in the construction of new roads, your muscles straining as you lay heavy paving stones, the rhythmic clang of hammers on rock echoing across the landscape. You might be tasked with cleaning the intricate sewer systems, the cloaca maxima, a dark, damp, and malodorous world beneath the city streets, where the air is heavy with the stench of waste, and the only light comes from the flickering lamps you carry. This work, though vital, is often unseen, unappreciated, a silent testament to the hidden labor that sustained the grandeur of Rome. Some public slaves held more specialized, even privileged, positions. You might be a scriba, a public scribe, your days spent in the quiet confines of a public archive, meticulously copying official documents, recording decrees, or managing vast registers of citizens and property. The scent of parchment and ink fills the air, and the scratching of your stylus on wax tablets or papyrus is the dominant sound. Your hands, though still working, are engaged in a different kind of labor, one that requires precision, literacy, and a keen eye for detail. This role offers a unique vantage point, allowing you to glimpse the inner workings of the Roman administration, to understand the flow of power and information. You might even be a carnifex, a public executioner, a grim and solitary role, feared and shunned, yet essential to the maintenance of public order. Your hands, though clean, are stained by the weight of your duties, and your presence evokes a chilling silence wherever you go. The life of a public slave, while still bound by the chains of servitude, often offered a degree of stability and even a path to manumission that was less common in private households or agricultural estates. The state, as your master, was often less capricious than an individual dominus. Your work was essential, your skills valued, and your contributions recognized, albeit within the confines of your status. You might receive a regular allowance, a peculium, allowing you to save money, to acquire small possessions, and perhaps, eventually, to purchase your freedom. The prospect of manumission, though distant, is a constant flicker of hope, a quiet dream that sustains you through the long, arduous days. You observe the freedmen and freedwomen who once held similar positions, now moving with a newfound confidence, their faces etched with the quiet pride of independence, and you imagine a future where you too might walk free, your own master of your own destiny. Yet, even with these potential advantages, the fundamental reality of your servitude remains. You are still property, subject to the will of the state, unable to make your own choices, your life dictated by the needs of the public good. The threat of punishment, though perhaps less arbitrary than in a private household, still looms, and your freedom can be revoked, your status downgraded, your life made harder with a single decree. You are a cog in a vast, impersonal machine, your individual identity subsumed by your function. The quiet dignity you cultivate, the small acts of self-preservation, the internal resilience you develop, are your only true possessions, your only means of navigating this complex and often indifferent world. Among the diverse tapestry of Roman slavery, there existed a path that, while fraught with unimaginable peril, also offered a fleeting glimpse of glory, a chance for a slave to transcend their origins and become a legend, the life of a gladiator. If your fate led you to the ludus, the gladiatorial school, you would enter a world of brutal discipline, relentless training, and the constant, chilling awareness of your own mortality. The air here is thick with the scent of sweat, blood, and the metallic tang of steel, a constant reminder of the violence that defines your existence. The sounds are sharp and percussive. The clang of swords, the thud of bodies hitting the sand, the guttural shouts of trainers, and the rhythmic pounding of feet in drills. You are no longer merely a slave. You are a weapon, a performer, a spectacle in the making, destined for the roar of the arena. Your days begin before dawn, roused by the harsh shouts of the lanista, the owner of the gladiatorial school, or his trainers. The chill of the morning air bites at your skin as you join your fellow recruits in the training yard, a space of packed earth and rough wooden posts. Your body, perhaps once soft, quickly hardens, your muscles growing taut and defined from the relentless physical exertion. You learn to wield various weapons, the heavy gladius, the short sword that gives the gladiator his name, the trident of the retiarius, the net, the shield, the helmet, each one an extension of your will, a tool for survival. The training is brutal, designed to strip away any lingering softness, to instill discipline, to hone your reflexes to a razor's edge. You practice endlessly, striking at wooden posts, sparring with blunt weapons, your movements becoming fluid, precise, deadly. Every mistake is met with a sharp word, a crack of the whip, a painful reminder of the consequences of failure. You are taught the various fighting styles, each with its own unique armor and weaponry, each designed to create a compelling spectacle for the Roman crowds. You might be trained as a murmillo, heavily armored with a large shield and a short sword, resembling a fish, or a thraex with a small, rectangular shield and a curved sword, or a retiarius lightly armored, relying on a net and a trident, his agility his only defense. You learn the strengths and weaknesses of each style, the tactics to employ, the vulnerabilities to exploit. The trainers, often former gladiators themselves, are unforgiving, their eyes sharp, their instructions precise, their goal to transform you from a raw recruit into a formidable fighter. You learn to control your fear, to channel your adrenaline, to move with a cold, calculated efficiency, for in the arena, hesitation means death. The food you are given is designed for strength and endurance, often a diet rich in barley and beans, earning gladiators the nickname hordearii, barley eaters. It is coarse, unappetizing, but it provides the necessary fuel for your demanding training. You eat in communal dining halls, the atmosphere often tense, filled with the quiet camaraderie of shared hardship, but also with the unspoken rivalries that simmer beneath the surface. You observe your fellow gladiators, their bodies scarred, their faces grim, each one a testament to the brutal path they have chosen or been forced upon. You hear whispers of past victories, of legendary fighters, of those who earned their freedom through their prowess in the arena, and a flicker of hope, however faint, ignites within you. Life in the ludus is a constant negotiation with death. You live in cramped cells, often chained at night, your freedom severely restricted. The lanista holds absolute power over your life, and his decisions determine your fate. You are a valuable commodity, an investment, and your health and training are meticulously managed to ensure you are fit for combat. Yet, despite the harshness, a strange sense of community can form among the gladiators. They are bound by a shared destiny, a mutual understanding of the unique horrors they face. You witness moments of quiet support, a shared glance of understanding, a helping hand during a difficult drill, small gestures that speak volumes in a world where compassion is a luxury. The day of the games arrives, a day that fills you with a mixture of dread and a strange, almost exhilarating anticipation. You are led through the bustling streets, part of a grand procession, the roar of the crowd growing louder with every step. The sun glares down on the vast amphitheater, its towering walls a testament to Roman power and its insatiable thirst for spectacle. You hear the deafening roar of thousands of voices, a primal sound that vibrates through your very bones. As you step onto the sand of the arena, the light is blinding, the cheers overwhelming, and for a fleeting moment, you are no longer a slave, but a performer, a warrior, a figure of awe and terror. The fight begins, a blur of steel and sweat, of parries and thrusts, of life and death, played out for the entertainment of the masses. And in that moment, as you face your opponent, your training takes over, your instincts sharpened by the constant threat of oblivion, and you fight not just for your life, but for a chance, however slim, at a future beyond the sand. The legal status of a Roman slave was a stark and unyielding reality. You were property, a res, a thing, rather than a person. This fundamental distinction permeated every aspect of your existence, stripping you of rights, agency, and even your own identity in the eyes of the law. You were not permitted to own property, to marry legally, to make contracts, or to testify in court against a free person. Your body, your labor, your very life belonged entirely to your master, the dominus, who held almost absolute power over you. This legal framework, though seemingly rigid, was also surprisingly complex, with subtle nuances and evolving interpretations that shaped the daily lives of millions. You learn early that your master's word is law within his household. He could punish you, sell you, or even, in the early republic, put you to death, though this power became more restricted over time, especially under the empire, where extreme cruelty could sometimes lead to intervention by magistrates. You understand that your safety, your comfort, your very survival depend entirely on his temperament, his whims, and his sense of justice. There is no appeal, no higher authority to whom you can turn if you feel wronged by your master, for the law views you as an extension of his will, a tool for his use. This constant vulnerability, this perpetual awareness of your lack of legal recourse, creates a deep-seated sense of insecurity, a quiet fear that hums beneath the surface of your daily life. Despite your status as property, Roman law did recognize certain practical realities of your existence. You could, for instance, be granted a peculium, a small fund or property that your master allowed you to manage, often earned through extra labor or small ventures. This peculium was legally still your master's property, but in practice it functioned as your own, allowing you to save money, to purchase small luxuries, or even, in rare and fortunate circumstances, to buy your own freedom. The prospect of accumulating a peculium becomes a powerful motivator, a tangible goal that offers a glimmer of hope in the otherwise bleak landscape of your servitude. You might work extra hours, take on additional tasks, or engage in small, permitted trades, carefully hoarding every coin, every small gain, watching your peculium grow, a silent testament to your perseverance and your longing for independence. Your relationships, though not legally recognized as marriage, were often deeply meaningful and enduring. You might form a contubernium with another slave, a de facto union that provided companionship, emotional support, and a shared sense of belonging in a world that often denied you both. You might have children who, by law, would also be born into slavery, inheriting your status. The love you feel for your family, for your partner and your children, is a powerful force, a source of both joy and profound anxiety, for they too are property, subject to sale, to separation, to the whims of your master. The fear of being separated from your loved ones, of seeing them sold to a distant household or a harsh mine, is a constant, gnawing worry, a shadow that darkens even the brightest moments of connection. While you could not testify against a free person in court, your testimony could be compelled under torture in cases involving your master or other slaves. This grim reality underscores the brutal nature of Roman justice and the precariousness of your position. You learn to be cautious with your words, to guard your thoughts, for even an innocent remark could be twisted, misinterpreted, and used against you. The legal system, designed to protect the rights of citizens, offered little solace or protection to those in your position, reinforcing the fundamental power imbalance that defined your life. Yet, even within these rigid legal constraints, there were subtle ways in which your humanity was acknowledged, if not legally, then socially. Your master might value your skills, your loyalty, your intelligence, and treat you with a degree of respect, even affection. You might become an indispensable part of the household, your presence woven into the daily routines, your contributions essential to the master's comfort and prosperity. This informal recognition, though not enshrined in law, could offer a measure of security, a sense of belonging that transcended your legal status. The quiet dignity you maintain, the resilience you display, the small acts of kindness you offer to others, all serve to assert your humanity in a world that constantly sought to deny it, a silent testament to the enduring spirit that refused to be extinguished by the chains of servitude. The social integration of slaves within Roman society was a paradox, a complex interplay of invisibility and indispensability. You were everywhere, yet often unseen, a silent presence in the bustling streets, the grand villas, the public spaces. Your labor underpinned every aspect of Roman life, from the most mundane household chores to the grandest imperial projects. Yet your contributions were rarely acknowledged, your voices rarely heard. You were a part of the social fabric, yet fundamentally outside of it, a constant reminder of the rigid class distinctions that define the Roman world. In the urban domus, you were an integral part of the household, your duties weaving you into the daily routines of the free family. You might serve meals at the master's table, your movements precise and unobtrusive, listening to the conversations of the elite, absorbing snippets of news, gossip, and political intrigue. You might accompany the mistress on her outings, carrying her parasol, her shopping, her small dog, observing the vibrant street life, the interactions between citizens, the subtle displays of wealth and status. You were a witness to their lives, their joys, their sorrows, their triumphs, and their failures, a silent observer privy to the intimate details of their existence. This proximity, while reinforcing your subordinate status, also offered a unique perspective, a window into a world that was both fascinating and frustratingly out of reach. Your interactions with free Romans were always governed by a strict code of deference. You learned to lower your gaze, to speak only when spoken to use respectful forms of address, to maintain a posture of humility. A misstep, a perceived insolence, could lead to swift and severe consequences. Yet, within these boundaries, there could be moments of unexpected connection. A kind word from a sympathetic citizen, a shared laugh with a friendly merchant, a fleeting glance of understanding from a passerby. These small human interactions, though rare, were precious, offering a brief respite from the constant awareness of your status, a reminder that beneath the layers of social hierarchy, a shared humanity still existed. Among your fellow slaves, a vibrant, albeit often hidden, social world flourished. In the slave quarters, in the quiet moments after the day's labor, you found companionship, solace, and a sense of belonging. You shared stories, whispered secrets, offered comfort to one another, forging bonds that were often stronger than those between free citizens. You celebrated small victories, mourned shared losses, and found strength in collective resilience. There were informal hierarchies, leaders who emerged through their wisdom or strength, and a complex web of relationships that mirrored, in miniature, the larger society outside. This internal community, though often invisible to the free world, was your true refuge, a place where you could momentarily shed the mask of servitude and simply be yourself. Slaves also played a significant role in Roman religious life. You might participate in household rituals, offering prayers to the Lares and Penates, the household gods, alongside your master's family. You might attend public festivals, observing the grand processions and sacrifices, though your role would be that of a spectator, or perhaps a helper, rather than a full participant. Some slaves even became priests or priestesses in cults, particularly those of foreign deities, finding a measure of spiritual solace and community in these religious practices. This spiritual dimension offered a different kind of freedom, a connection to something larger than your immediate circumstances, a way to transcend the limitations of your earthly existence. Despite the pervasive nature of slavery, Roman society was not entirely blind to its moral complexities. Philosophers debated the nature of servitude, some arguing for its naturalness, others questioning its justice. Seneca, for instance, advocated for humane treatment of slaves, emphasizing their shared humanity. These intellectual discussions, however, rarely translated into widespread legal reform or a fundamental shift in societal attitudes. For you, the slave, these debates were distant echoes, abstract concepts that held little bearing on the concrete realities of your daily life. Your integration into Roman society was a forced one, a necessary evil in the eyes of the elite, a silent testament to the empire's reliance on human bondage. Yet, through your labor, your resilience, and your quiet acts of humanity, you contributed to the very fabric of that society, leaving an indelible, though often unacknowledged, mark on the grand narrative of Rome. The weight of servitude, though often borne with quiet resignation, was not always accepted without resistance. While large-scale slave rebellions like that of Spartacus are etched into the annals of history, the daily life of a Roman slave was also punctuated by countless smaller, more subtle acts of defiance, quiet assertions of agency in a world designed to deny it. These acts, often unseen by the master, were vital expressions of the human spirit, a way to reclaim a sliver of control, to maintain a sense of self in the face of overwhelming oppression. You might find yourself engaging in passive resistance, a quiet rebellion against the relentless demands of your labor. Perhaps you would work slowly, just enough to avoid punishment, but never with true enthusiasm or efficiency. A tool might mysteriously break, requiring a delay for repairs. A task might be misunderstood, requiring clarification and extra time. These small acts of inefficiency, though seemingly minor, could collectively impact the master's productivity, a silent protest against the exploitation of your labor. You learn the art of feigned ignorance, of appearing clumsy or forgetful, a subtle way to avoid undesirable tasks or to buy yourself a moment of respite. The line between genuine mistake and deliberate delay is often blurred, and you become adept at navigating this ambiguity, always careful not to cross the invisible boundary that would invite severe retribution. More direct, though still often covert, acts of defiance could also occur. A valuable object might go missing, only to reappear days later in an unexpected place. Food might be pilfered from the kitchen, a small act of self-provisioning in a world where your sustenance was entirely at your master's discretion. A master's favorite garment might be accidentally torn, a subtle expression of resentment. These acts, if discovered, carried severe penalties, but the risk was sometimes deemed worth the fleeting satisfaction of asserting a measure of control, of striking a small blow against the system that held you captive. You learn to be cunning, to be discreet, to leave no trace, for discovery could mean the lash, the chains, or even a harsher fate. Poisoning, though rare and extremely dangerous, was a feared form of resistance, particularly in wealthy households where slaves had access to food preparation. The subtle introduction of a slow-acting poison, or a sudden, fatal dose, was a desperate act of vengeance, a final, terrible assertion of power by the utterly powerless. The fear of such acts led masters to employ food tasters, often other slaves, creating a chilling layer of distrust and suspicion within the household. You hear whispers of such incidents, stories passed in hushed tones among the slaves, tales of retribution that serve as both a warning and a grim inspiration. Escape, the ultimate act of defiance, was a constant dream for many, though the reality was fraught with immense peril. The vastness of the Roman Empire, its efficient network of roads, and its pervasive legal system made successful escape incredibly difficult. Runaway slaves were hunted by professional slave catchers, their descriptions posted on public notices, their capture rewarded. If caught, the punishment was severe: branding, torture, or even crucifixion, a gruesome public display meant to deter others. Yet, despite the overwhelming odds, some attempted it, driven by an unbearable longing for freedom, a desperate hope for a life beyond the chains. You hear stories of those who vanished into the night, their fates unknown, and you wonder, in the quiet moments of your own despair, if you too possess the courage to take such a desperate gamble. The most overt forms of resistance were the large-scale rebellions, like the one led by Spartacus in the 1st century BCE. You hear the echoes of these events, stories passed down through generations of slaves, tales of a brief, glorious moment when the oppressed rose up against their masters, when the chains were broken and freedom seemed within reach. These stories, though often ending in brutal suppression, serve as a powerful symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the desire for liberty can ignite a fire that burns fiercely, however briefly. The memory of such uprisings, though distant, fuels a quiet defiance, a shared understanding that while individual acts of resistance may be small, the collective yearning for freedom is a powerful, unyielding force. The ultimate aspiration for many Roman slaves, a beacon of hope in a life of servitude, was manumission, the act of being formally freed by your master. This was not a universal right, nor an easy path, but a privilege granted at the master's discretion, often for loyalty, long service, exceptional skill, or sometimes for a price. The prospect of manumission, though distant, was a powerful motivator, shaping your daily actions, your every interaction. As you strive to earn your master's favor, to prove your worth, to demonstrate your unwavering dedication. There were several formal ways a master could grant freedom. The most common was manumitio vindicta, a public ceremony performed before a magistrate. You would stand before the official, your master present, and a lictor, an attendant, would touch you with a rod, declaring you free. This was a moment of profound significance, a public acknowledgement of your new status, a symbolic breaking of the chains that had bound you. The air in the forum, usually bustling with activity, would seem to hold its breath for a moment, as your new identity was proclaimed. You would feel the weight lift from your shoulders, the sudden lightness in your step, the overwhelming surge of emotion as the words of freedom echoed in your ears. Another method was manumitio censu, where your master would enroll you as a citizen during the census, effectively freeing you. This was a less dramatic, more administrative process, but equally significant in its outcome. Or, a master could free you through his will, manumitio testamento, a posthumous gift of liberty that would come into effect upon his death. This meant a life of continued service, often with even greater diligence, as you waited for the master's passing, a strange mixture of grief and anticipation marking your days. The uncertainty of this method, the possibility of the will being changed or challenged, added another layer of anxiety to your existence. Upon manumission, you did not simply become a free person. You became a libertus or liberta, a freedman or freedwoman. Your new status was a complex one, a liminal space between full citizen and former slave. While you gained personal freedom, the right to marry legally, and the ability to own property, you still retained certain obligations to your former master, now your patronus. These obligations, known as obsequium, could include continued service, financial support, or political loyalty. You might still be expected to perform certain duties for your patron, to attend him in public, to offer him respect and deference. This continued connection, while sometimes burdensome, could also be a source of protection and opportunity, as your patron's influence could open doors that would otherwise remain closed to a former slave. The life of a freedman or freedwoman was a journey of adaptation and ambition. You could engage in trade, open a business, or pursue a craft, often leveraging the skills you acquired during your servitude. Many freedmen became incredibly successful, accumulating wealth and influence, their entrepreneurial spirit fueled by the desire to prove their worth and secure a better future for themselves and their families. You might see former fellow slaves, now freed, walking with a newfound confidence, their faces etched with the quiet pride of independence, their clothes perhaps a little finer, their movements a little bolder. Their success stories, though not universal, served as powerful examples, inspiring others to strive for their own freedom. However, the stigma of slavery often lingered. You could not hold high political office, nor could your children, for several generations. Your origins were always known, a mark that, while not legally binding, could affect your social standing and the opportunities available to you. You might face prejudice, subtle slights, or open disdain from those born free. Yet, despite these challenges, the freedom you gained was invaluable, a precious gift that allowed you to shape your own destiny, to build a life on your own terms. The quiet satisfaction of making your own choices, of earning your own living, of raising your children as free individuals, was a profound reward, a testament to the enduring power of hope and the human desire for self-determination. The journey from slave to freedman was a testament to resilience, a quiet triumph against the overwhelming forces of fate. The Roman Empire, a colossal entity of power and ambition, was not merely a political or military force. It was an economic engine, and at the very heart of its vast machinery lay the pervasive institution of slavery. Your existence, your labor, your very being, contributed directly to the immense wealth and prosperity of Rome, a silent, unacknowledged foundation upon which the grandeur of the empire was built. From the grandest public works to the most intimate household comforts, the hands of slaves were everywhere, shaping the landscape, producing the goods, and providing the services that fueled Roman society. In the vast agricultural estates, the latifundia, your relentless toil in the fields produced the grain that fed the burgeoning cities, the olives that yielded the precious oil, and the grapes that became the wine that flowed freely at Roman banquets. The rhythmic swing of your hoe, the sweat that dripped from your brow, the ache in your muscles, all translated into bushels of wheat, amphorae of oil, and barrels of wine, commodities that enriched your master and sustained the empire. The efficiency of these slave-run farms allowed for mass production, driving down costs and making Roman agricultural products competitive across the Mediterranean. You were a vital, yet invisible, part of this vast agrarian economy, your labor directly contributing to the sustenance of millions. In the mines and quarries, your backbreaking work extracted the raw materials that built Rome's monumental structures and forged its instruments of war and peace. The gold and silver you painstakingly chipped from the earth funded imperial expansion and adorned the elite. The marble you quarried became the gleaming temples, the majestic forums, and the grand villas that defined Roman architecture. The iron you mined was forged into tools, weapons, and countless everyday objects. Your labor in these dark, dangerous places was a direct input into the empire's infrastructure and its military might, a silent sacrifice that enabled Rome's physical manifestation of power. Within the cities, slaves were the backbone of the urban economy. In workshops, you might be a skilled artisan, producing pottery, textiles, leather goods, or intricate metalwork, your hands shaping raw materials into finished products that were sold in the bustling markets. You might work in bakeries, grinding grain and baking bread for the city's populace, the heat of the ovens a constant presence. In taverns and inns, you served food and drink, cleaned rooms, and attended to travelers. In the bustling ports, you loaded and unloaded ships, your muscles straining under heavy cargo, facilitating the vast network of Roman trade that stretched across the known world. Your versatility and adaptability made you an indispensable part of the urban workforce, filling every conceivable niche, from the most menial to the highly skilled. Beyond manual labor, many slaves performed intellectual and administrative tasks that were crucial to the functioning of the Roman economy. You might be a dispensator, managing your master's finances, overseeing his estates, or handling his business transactions, your literacy and numeracy skills invaluable. You might be a librarius, copying texts and managing libraries, preserving knowledge and facilitating communication. Some slaves even acted as agents for their masters, conducting business deals, managing properties, or overseeing other slaves, their intelligence and trustworthiness highly valued. These roles, often requiring specialized education and considerable responsibility, highlight the diverse contributions of slaves to the Roman economic system, demonstrating that their value extended far beyond mere physical strength. The economic impact of slavery was profound. It allowed the Roman elite to accumulate vast wealth, freeing them from manual labor and enabling them to pursue politics, philosophy, and military careers. It provided a cheap and abundant labor force that fueled expansion, innovation, and the maintenance of a complex society. However, it also stifled technological innovation in some areas, as there was less incentive to develop labor-saving devices when human labor was so readily available and inexpensive. Your life, a constant cycle of labor and submission, was a silent testament to this economic reality, a living embodiment of the system that powered the greatest empire the world had ever known. Your hands, your sweat, your very being, were the unacknowledged engines of Roman prosperity, a quiet, enduring force that shaped the destiny of an empire. The passage of time, a relentless and indifferent current, brought subtle yet significant shifts to the institution of slavery within the Roman Empire. As the centuries unfolded, from the Republic through the early and late Empire, the nature of servitude, the treatment of slaves, and the paths to freedom slowly, almost imperceptibly, began to evolve. Your life, though still bound by the chains of your status, might experience these changes as a gradual softening of the harshest edges, a slight widening of the narrow confines of your existence. In the early republic, the power of the master over his slave was virtually absolute, extending even to life and death. You were truly a res, a chattel with almost no legal protection. The acquisition of slaves was often a direct result of conquest, with vast numbers of war captives flooding the markets, driving down prices and reinforcing the brutal nature of the system. Your life was cheap, your labor expendable, and your master's whim was your ultimate law. The fear of arbitrary cruelty was a constant, chilling presence, shaping every interaction, every movement, every unspoken thought. As the empire matured, and particularly with the rise of emperors like Hadrian and Antoninus Pius in the 2nd century CE, there began to be a gradual, albeit limited, legal recognition of slaves as something more than mere property. Laws were introduced that made it illegal for a master to kill a slave without cause, or to treat them with excessive cruelty. While these laws were often difficult to enforce and relied on the willingness of magistrates to intervene, they represented a subtle shift in legal philosophy, a nascent acknowledgement of the slave's humanity, however grudging. You might hear whispers of such decrees, stories of masters being punished for extreme abuses, and a faint glimmer of hope might ignite within you, a sense that perhaps, just perhaps, your life held a tiny bit more value in the eyes of the law. The sources of slaves also began to diversify. While war captives remained a significant source, debt slavery had largely been abolished for Roman citizens. Instead, birth into slavery became increasingly common, as did the sale of children by impoverished parents, or the capture of individuals by pirates. This meant that many slaves were born and raised within the Roman system, often speaking Latin, familiar with Roman customs, and sometimes even educated. This familiarity could lead to more integrated roles within households and businesses, blurring the lines between slave and free in some social contexts, even if the legal distinction remains stark. You might find yourself working alongside others who had never known a life outside of Rome, their experiences different from your own, yet bound by the same invisible chains. The practice of manumission also became more widespread, particularly in the later empire. Masters, perhaps influenced by philosophical ideas, religious beliefs, especially with the rise of Christianity, or simply practical considerations, freed slaves more frequently. The economic landscape also played a role. As the empire faced internal challenges, the incentive to maintain vast numbers of slaves on latifundius sometimes diminished, leading to more manumissions or the conversion of slaves into tenant farmers. The prospect of freedom, once a distant dream, might now seem a little closer, a little more attainable, fueling your efforts and sustaining your hope. However, it is crucial to remember that these evolutions were slow, uneven, and never fundamentally challenged the institution of slavery itself. The vast majority of slaves continued to live lives of hardship, their freedom dependent on the arbitrary will of their masters. The legal protections, while present, were often weak, and the social stigma of former servitude persisted for generations. Yet, for you, the slave, these subtle shifts in the fabric of Roman society offered small moments of respite, faint glimmers of hope, and a quiet testament to the enduring human capacity for adaptation and resilience in the face of overwhelming historical forces. The empire continued to rely on your labor, but the nature of that reliance, and the conditions under which it was extracted, slowly, almost imperceptibly, began to change. The daily rhythm of your life as a Roman slave, whether in the bustling domus, the sun-baked fields, or the dark confines of the mines, was punctuated by the constant presence of your body. It was your primary tool, your means of labor, and often the site of your suffering. The physical demands placed upon you were immense, shaping your posture, your gait, the very contours of your muscles. You learn to listen to your body, to push its limits, and to endure its aches and pains, for your survival depended on its continued function. Your hands, once perhaps soft and unblemished, became calloused and rough, etched with the marks of your labor. Whether from gripping a hoe, polishing metal, or carrying heavy loads, your skin thickened, your nails broke, and your fingers grew strong and nimble, capable of performing repetitive tasks with tireless efficiency. You might develop a permanent stoop from hours spent bent over in the fields, or a stiffness in your shoulders from carrying water jars. The constant physical exertion meant that your body was often weary, a dull ache settling deep in your bones by the end of each day, a persistent reminder of the demands placed upon you. Food, though often basic and unappetizing, was essential fuel for your body. You learned to eat quickly, to savor every morsel, for sustenance was not a luxury but a necessity. The coarse bread, the olives, the thin gruel provided the energy needed to continue your arduous tasks. You might feel the gnawing pangs of hunger, especially if food was scarce or rations were cut, a sharp reminder of your vulnerability and dependence. The taste of a ripe fig, a piece of fresh cheese, or a sip of cool, clean water, when available, became moments of profound pleasure, small luxuries that nourished not just your body, but your spirit. Sleep, when it came, was often a restless affair. In cramped, communal quarters, surrounded by the snores and movements of others, true rest was elusive. You might lie on a thin straw pallet, listening to the sounds of the night, your mind replaying the day's events or anticipating the next. Dreams, when they came, might be fragmented memories of a life before servitude, or fleeting visions of freedom, only to be shattered by the harsh reality of dawn. The constant lack of deep, restorative sleep contributed to a perpetual state of fatigue, a dull weariness that permeated your every action. Hygiene, for many slaves, was rudimentary. Access to clean water and soap was often limited, especially for those in rural or mining contexts. You might bathe infrequently, your skin and clothes perpetually grimy from dust, sweat, and the grime of your labor. The scent of unwashed bodies, of stale clothes, was a common presence in slave quarters. However, for household slaves in wealthier domus, access to baths might be more frequent, as cleanliness was often a requirement for those serving the master directly. You might even be tasked with preparing the master's bath, the warm, scented water a stark contrast to your own rough existence. Illness and injury were constant threats, and medical care was often scarce or non-existent. A cut could fester, a fever could rage unchecked, a broken bone could heal improperly, leaving you permanently debilitated. You witnessed the suffering of others, the slow decline of those whose bodies could no longer withstand the demands placed upon them. The fear of becoming useless, of being cast aside or sold to a harsher fate, was a powerful motivator to protect your body, to endure pain, to hide your ailments. Your body was your only tool, your only means of survival, and its health was paramount, a constant source of anxiety in a world that offered little comfort or care. Yet, even amidst the physical hardships, your body was also a source of resilience. It adapted, it strengthened, it endured. You learned to move with efficiency, to conserve energy, to find small moments of rest. Your senses sharpened, your awareness of your surroundings heightened. The ability of your body to withstand relentless toil, to recover from exhaustion, to continue functioning day after day, was a testament to its remarkable capacity for survival. It was a vessel of endurance, carrying your spirit through the long, arduous journey of servitude, a silent, powerful testament to the unyielding strength of the human form. Beyond the physical demands and legal constraints, the life of a Roman slave was also a profound psychological journey, a constant negotiation with the internal landscape of hope, despair, and the enduring human need for dignity. The invisible chains that bound your mind were often as heavy, if not heavier, than the visible ones that restricted your movements. You learned to navigate a world where your thoughts were your only true sanctuary, a private space where you could still assert a measure of self. The constant awareness of your lack of freedom, the knowledge that your life was not your own, created a deep-seated sense of powerlessness. Every command, every task, every restriction reinforced this reality, slowly eroding your sense of agency. You might feel a profound sense of injustice, a quiet resentment simmering beneath the surface of your outward compliance. This internal struggle, though unseen by your masters, was a constant companion, a silent battle fought within the confines of your own mind. You learned to suppress outward expressions of anger or frustration, to cultivate an impassive demeanor, for any display of defiance could lead to severe consequences. Yet, even in the face of such overwhelming control, the human spirit found ways to assert itself. You might find solace in small acts of internal rebellion, a whispered curse under your breath, a defiant thought that no one could hear, a private moment of contempt for your master. These small, secret acts of defiance were vital for maintaining a sense of self, for preserving a flicker of your own identity in a world that sought to strip it away. You might cling to memories of your past, of a life before servitude, conjuring images of your homeland, your family, your traditions, allowing these recollections to transport you, however briefly, beyond the confines of your present reality. Hope, though often a fragile and elusive companion, was a powerful force that sustained many. The prospect of manumission, however distant, was a constant beacon, a quiet dream that fueled your efforts and gave meaning to your endurance. You might hear stories of other slaves who had gained their freedom, who had gone on to build successful lives, and these narratives, though perhaps embellished, offered a tangible possibility, a reason to continue striving. This hope, however faint, was a lifeline, pulling you through the darkest moments, reminding you that your current circumstances were not necessarily your ultimate destiny. The relationships you formed with other slaves were crucial for your psychological well-being. In the shared hardship, in the quiet camaraderie of the slave quarters, you found understanding, empathy, and a sense of belonging. You could share your fears, your frustrations, your small joys, knowing that you were not alone. These bonds, forged in adversity, provided a vital emotional support system, a refuge from the isolation and dehumanization of your status. You learned to trust, to confide, to offer comfort, creating a miniature society where your humanity was acknowledged and valued, even if the outside world denied it. Humor, even in the darkest of times, could be a powerful coping mechanism. The shared joke, the whispered witticism, the ironic observation about your masters or your circumstances provided moments of levity, a brief escape from the grim realities of your life. Laughter, however quiet, was an act of defiance, a way to assert your humanity, to find joy even in the most oppressive environments. These moments of shared mirth, though fleeting, were precious, offering a release from tension and a reminder of the enduring capacity for joy even in the face of suffering. Ultimately, the psychological journey of a Roman slave was a testament to the extraordinary resilience of the human spirit. Despite the constant threat of violence, the pervasive lack of freedom, and the relentless dehumanization, you found ways to preserve your dignity, to maintain your sense of self, and to cling to hope. Your internal world, though often hidden, was a vibrant landscape of thought, emotion, and quiet resistance, a testament to the unyielding power of the mind to transcend even the most brutal of circumstances. The quiet strength you cultivated, the inner fortitude you developed, were your most valuable possessions, allowing you to navigate the complex and often cruel realities of your existence with an enduring, silent grace. As the sun begins its slow descent, casting long, weary shadows across the Roman landscape, you find yourself reflecting on the quiet passage of time, the countless days that have woven themselves into the fabric of your existence. The sounds of the city, once a cacophony, now soften into a gentle hum, the distant murmur of voices, the faint clatter of a cart, the rustle of leaves in a gentle breeze. Your hands, though still bearing the marks of labor, move with a practiced ease, a quiet efficiency born of years of repetition. The world around you, once alien and overwhelming, has become a familiar landscape, its rhythms ingrained in your very being. You have witnessed the ebb and flow of seasons, the relentless cycle of planting and harvest, the quiet unfolding of countless dawns and dusks. You have seen children born into this life, their small hands eventually joining the endless work, and you have seen others pass on, their weary bodies finally finding rest. Each day has brought its own challenges, its own small victories, its own moments of quiet endurance. The fear that once gripped your heart has softened into a dull ache, a constant companion, but no longer a paralyzing force. You have learned to live with it, to navigate its presence, to find moments of peace amidst its shadow. The faces of those you have known, both free and enslaved, pass through your mind like fleeting images. The stern gaze of a master, the kind smile of a fellow slave, the indifferent glance of a citizen in the forum. Each interaction, however brief, has left its mark, shaping your understanding of humanity, of power, of compassion, and of cruelty. You have learned the subtle language of unspoken communication, the nuances of a glance, the meaning behind a gesture, becoming adept at reading the hidden currents of human interaction. This quiet wisdom, born of observation and necessity, is a precious possession, a testament to your journey. The dreams that once haunted your sleep, vivid and unsettling, have softened into a gentle haze, their sharp edges blurred by the passage of time. You no longer yearn with the same desperate intensity for a life that is no longer yours, but rather find solace in the small, tangible realities of your present. The warmth of the sun on your skin, the taste of a simple meal, the quiet camaraderie of a shared moment with a fellow slave. These are the anchors that ground you, the small joys that illuminate the long, arduous path of your existence. You have learned to find beauty in the mundane, to appreciate the fleeting moments of peace, to cultivate an inner resilience that no external force can truly diminish. As the last rays of sunlight fade, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, a quiet stillness descends upon the world. The sounds of the day recede, replaced by the gentle chirping of crickets, the distant hoot of an owl, the soft rustle of leaves in the evening breeze. You feel the cool air settle on your skin, a soothing balm after the heat of the day. Your breath comes slowly, evenly, a quiet rhythm that mirrors the gentle pulse of the world around you. The weight of the day's labor begins to lift, replaced by a profound sense of quietude, a deep, pervasive calm that settles over your weary body and mind. You close your eyes, and the images of the Roman Empire, its grandeur and its shadows, begin to gently recede, fading into the soft, comforting embrace of the approaching night. And now, as the last echoes of our journey gently fade, allow your own breath to deepen, to slow, feeling the quiet rhythm of your own being. The ancient world, with its vast landscapes and its intricate lives, now drifts softly away, like mist dissolving with the morning sun. Let the images of stone and dust, of distant voices and quiet footsteps, become soft whispers in the air around you, no longer demanding your attention, but simply dissolving into the stillness. Feel the gentle weight of your own body, settled and at peace, as the stories of the past recede, leaving only a profound sense of calm. The long journey through time has concluded, and now, Only quiet remains, a soft, enveloping silence that invites you to rest, to simply be. All the echoes of the empire, all the lives lived within its vast embrace, now settle into a gentle, timeless slumber.